officer. I really one of the first things I did when I decided to do it was got to have a platform, got to have a plan. You know, you got to have some type of tangible something for people to glom onto. And there was just nothing. And to this day, we're 2 days out from that election, and I still haven't heard anything really tangible from either of those candidates. And I think that it becomes that bombast, and I've seen, you know, Lisa running at Leo and saying, you were the mayor, you were on the city council for 20 years, it's your fault, this is where the blame lies, and him coming back and, you know, well, it's about your general assembly record and your common cause scores. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Common Cause for what they do in John Marion, and I can't imagine the frustration that a guy like John Marion sees in the General Assembly here in Rhode Island, where you know, good government floor amendments come out when they set the rules of the House from the very minority Republican caucus in the House, that on their face you read them and you say, these are good government rules. These are openness, these are clarity, these are transparency, and they get voted down out of hand simply because they're from the other side of the aisle. Now, that said, I think that there's a huge contingency of, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, the dinos here in Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. We have quote Democrats in our General Assembly that quite frankly should register as Republicans. Right. They're social conservatives, they're fiscal conservatives.
Exactly, they should be registered and running as Republicans.
Right, but
they're taking advantage of the Democratic machine.
Right, and the conventional wisdom says, you know, the people of Woonsocket will not vote for you if you have an R next to your name. The people of, you know, the massive middle and lower class in Providence and Warwick and Cranston will not vote for you if you have that R next to your name. I think we see a little bit of mitigation of that with, you know, Alan Fong in Cranston. Obviously, I think doing a pretty decent job down in Cranston, but he's a very moderate Republican, much in the vein of Ron Makeley or Claudine Schneider, John Chafee, of course, you know, great statesman from Rhode Island. Very, very moderate Republicans, and it's sad for me to see that the party kind of being co-opted by the wacko birds. Did John McCain call them of the Tea Party?
What's universal amongst this whole group is that everybody hates everybody. Like, I despise John McCain on an organic level. All right, just on so many different issues.
Almost genetic.
Yeah, no, it's primal. So and never have I seen someone who, you know, who started out in the form of noble public service quickly. I mean, he is, you know, when you talk about the Republican Party, to me, you're talking about the party of Bob Dole, of John McCain, of Richard Nixon, of at a local level, Ed DePreet. You know, these corporatocrats who essentially, I mean, go back to Bob Dole, again, a war hero, a noble man. You know, one of the Senate chief honchos, basically was a wholly owned subsidiary of Archer Daniels Midland. Right. Yeah, and at one point, absolutely. It was exposed for living in an apartment that was owned by Archer Daniels Midland. No conflict there, hey, nice. But Sparky, you know, so you have this group of individuals who are just loathsome. I mean, look at the last handful of presidential candidates they've nominated, and yet they would pretend. And this is my mantra: they co-opt the libertarian name in much the same ways that the Obaministas co-opt some of the motives and the pure aspects of the Occupy and the Green movements. All right, just completely adulter them and spew out this populist rhetoric on both sides to appeal to both groups of people, and at the same time, it's the ultimate case of, you know, watch what I say, not what I do.
And it's that kind of, I don't know if it's this populist speech, but it's this fire up the base.
Right.
Get the base.
Right. Populist in the sense that
raising their fists and raising their voice.
The populist nature of their base.
Right.
Exactly. That's what gets the donations rolling in.
Yeah.
Too.
Yep. Absolutely, because people see the fire and like, oh, that guy's got heart. Yeah. You know, it might be in the totally wrong place, but hey, he's got heart, so I'll throw a few bucks at him.
There's a whole science to how to write an inflammatory fundraising letter that makes people whip out their checkbooks and write big checks that they can't really afford.
Look at Ted Cruz. Yeah. I mean, the money that he raked in, and he went home to an 8-minute standing ovation.
Right, and look at the money
for
that
being ridiculous.
Our local politicians.
Saturday Night Live's loving it, though.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, our local federal politicians are guilty of the same thing. I mean, they can't wait to fundraise over the latest perceived inflated hyperbolic crisis.
Yeah, yeah, and you see it even in our governor's race right now. Like this thing that's going on with Uber, this car company that's out there right now. This $40 fee, and it's like. This story comes out that you would think it'd be. I mean, to me, it's just symptomatic of the regulatory nature or the over-regulatory nature of our state government. And before you know it, every candidate in the race has got a press release going out, and it's like they will glom on to any little thing to give their side of the story, to give their take on it, whether it be right, left, or centrist. But it's immediate. It's like they grab onto it like, oh, this is an issue. We got to address this issue. To me, it's not. The press release I would have put out would have been exactly that. This is simply, I don't know why everybody's so fired up about this, because it's simply symptomatic of the over-regulatory nature of our state's government.
Well, everybody wants free PR at this point. So they've got PR reps who basically are justifying their existence, first of all, and secondly, trying to gain some free airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so
I resemble that remark.
Exactly. If you can get something in the paper that says politician X expressed this completely pointless opinion about this completely pointless subject, it's better than not having it in the paper from their point of view.
Well, I mean, go back to the AR-15, give the gun raffle. They tracked down, they found the milk carton that Kilmartin was hiding on, our Attorney General, and elicited some puerile response about, it being, wah, wah. Yet at the same time, I've tweeted out to Amy Kemp, Car 54, where are you? The lifelong, I don't know who she was. This woman has been the press agent for more Rhode Island politicians. I'm sure she's a lovely person, all right? But, you tweet out to her, can we get you on the show? Because we recently had Dawson Hodgson on, who's made some incredibly effective remarks about the current state of the Attorney General, and crickets.
Yeah.
So address real issues? Not so much. But if you can...
If you're willing to be an outlet for their message, they'll jump right on the board, on the boat.
They'll come
Absolutely.
on if you're offering them 3 minutes in which they can spew their sound bites.
Without any effective debate, by the
way. Right. If you ask a question, they've basically been trained in how to ignore the question and skirt around it and just give the answer they wanted to give all along.
Right. Which, and the media plays into it by, we talk about we're an outrage porn-free zone here, all right? The media plays into it because they've got 3 hours a day to fill, and it's hard work to talk about hard issues, and it requires thoughtfulness, not the knee-jerk response that's going to please the advertisers here.
Well, not only that, but if I keep challenging you to answer the question that I asked you instead of letting you say what you want to say, you won't come on my show again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have. Nobody's going to want to come on my show if I'm too mean to you.
Yeah.
So
it's the same reason that local newspapers don't print bad restaurant reviews, because then that restaurant will not advertise with that newspaper.
Right. Exactly.
It's funny you mentioned Amy Kemp a few years back. This was. What office was she in at the time? Was she in the governor's office?
She was
PR for Carcieri at the end of his administration.
But by the way, let me just throw out for a second because I want you to make your point. But for the love of God, if you have any political sensibility, any political guidance, any political loyalties, if you have any sort of personal ideology at all, how in the name of God and all that is holy do you go from being the press secretary for Donald Carcieri and then go to Kilmartin? How does that happen?
And she did a stint with Mr. Chafee in the middle there.
Yeah,
wow.
Yep. She was working in his press office as well. So a few years back, I think it was this awful Dry Lands Act that the Rhode Island Builders Association keeps trying to push through, where they want to get slopes taken out of the building permits. And I mean, it's basically just a land grab for rural Rhode Island. And somebody, I think it was Eugenia Marks from the Audubon Society, had really kind of lambasted the whole idea. And at that point, Kemp put out a press release saying, and actually was quoted in the newspaper as saying, well, you just can't please those people. And I'm like, being a pretty green guy, I was like, are you kidding me? If you ever addressed any minority group or any group as those people,
people.
So we actually ran with it over at EcoRI News and had a bunch of T-shirts printed up that said, "I am one of those people."
I'd love one of those shirts. If you still have any of those shirts, I'd love one.
If they ever addressed fat white guys as those people, I would be pissed.
Well, you know, if you lived in New York and they cut down the supersized sodas, you might be like, damn it.
I want my big gulp.
So my point is this, and you guys tell me what you think. It's time, given the oppression, the political oppression that's taking place, as we speak across the nation, making it harder, to ratcheting up the machines to make it more difficult for independent voice to speak up. It's time for people in those individual movements to say, you know what, I'm no longer willing to be a second citizen to the Democratic Party, to the Republican Party, fill in the blanks. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stand up for my ideology. It is not a wasted vote. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in, because essentially anything else is just giving up whatever little we have left in the form of civic pride, civic ownership, free speech, fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I say, both of the candidates up in the for the Woonsocket mayor's office have pushed me hard for an endorsement, and I said nope. I'm not endorsing anybody because, frankly, I have no faith in either of you.
Yeah,
and the support and the support that I did get were people who said as much. Mm-hmm. I have no faith in our current leadership, and I have no faith in this challenger to be any type of change that is going to be good for this city. And I would rather honestly stay true to myself and stay true to my supporters and stick by my guns.
So going into the election, do you bring us other news from Woonsocket, or what's your...
Well, I had been, over the course of the last couple of years, it really kind of started when CVS started talking about, or the governor started talking about cutting back the Jobs Development Act with CVS to kind of spread the love a little bit with the tax incentive dollars here in the state. So I started really digging into CVS tax breaks and tax breaks for other companies in the state and in the individual cities and towns around, and I do have a whole packet of here, but given that there's about 4 minutes left in the show, it might be a little tough to get to.
Yeah, we'll save that maybe for next time they're here.
Yeah, so everybody stay tuned, and the next time I'm on, I'll have a pretty awful report on just how some cities and towns, namely Woonsocket, are subsidizing taxpayers in their surrounding communities by giving away tax breaks to big corporations.
Well, that brings up an important point as we close the show. We're welcoming you to what we call the special teams, along with Russ Moore.
All right,
the coalition. Great. You're going to be a regular contributor to this. Back in the day, some of the news magazines had a setup where you had 2 or 3 core people just sort of marshaling whatever resources we could find. We've got 2 wonderful people now, Mr. Fisher and Russ Moore, who's from GoLocalProud.com, who are going to provide us from regular updates and just additional level of perspective to some of the issues coming with the state. So we're going to have you back very, very soon. We've got a couple of big announcements that we're going to have at the end of this week. We're starting to approach the silly season. We've got some candidates for general offices of the state of Rhode Island who are going to be joining us on the show. So stay tuned to our website and our Facebook page, Tony.
Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On Twitter, Coalition_radio. And, of course, CoalitionRadio.us. Very popular this evening. People choosing to tune in over there, which is a fantastic idea as far as I'm concerned. And with that, I hope you could join us next time on The Coalition. CoalitionRadio.us.